Good morning and welcome to Hardin Life Live. We are the Hardins and we are a family of counselors and coaches committed to helping you live your best life, both from a therapeutic and biblical perspective. So we just wrapped up a whole month of boundaries. So if you missed us, make sure to check out our YouTube channel and our blogs because it is an awesome place for those resources. But this month, we are talking about something that we all can relate to, and that is loss, grief, loss. We have a range of those, big and small. And when we don't properly work through them, we bear them. And so we are hoping to help you know how to navigate a season of loss or a specific loss as we talk about that this month. So, Dad, you actually wrote a blog on this and tied it in with an excellent book on loss, and just would love to hear more about that and how that inspired you.
Well, C.S. Lewis has been a hero of mine, a teaching mentor through his books and other writings. And A Grief Observed is his journaling of his loss of his wife, Joey, to cancer. And it's just an absolute must in terms of anybody who is a grower and a learner, a mental health professional, people helper, and just someone who is facing the reality that we all face of loss on any level. And so his writings combined with Kubler-Ross's well-known 5 stages of grief was both an inspiration and a resource for me in this blog.
You know what's so interesting to me about, I loved what you wrote and those 5 stages. I think the thing that a lot of us don't calculate, I know myself, I haven't always calculated, is that a lot of times we're in a constant season of grieving because, you know, I'm at that season, I'm starting to grieve the loss of my body parts working exactly the way I want them. I've been sitting with people, loss of relationships, even loss of pets can totally impact us. And I love the fact that Isaiah 58 said that the coming Messiah was acquainted with grief, well acquainted with grief. And I think what it sort of framed my mindset differently is that to be a healthy, growing person, I've got to look it in the face and start to be well acquainted with grief so that I give it honor, both in my life and the life of others. Because if we try to dismiss it, get away from it, hurry up and grow past it, we actually don't allow it to get the honor and the work it's supposed to accomplish in our lives.
I love that. My neighbors in Birmingham were suddenly struck with the incredible loss of their 3-year-old son. Just one day woke up and he did not wake up. And I think that was my first real experience with a major loss, something that was so wrong. It felt so wrong that a 3-year-old would lose his life before we would, and before his parents would. And the 2 things that stick out to me from that experience was, one, the father, Cameron, said that his therapist told him that the only wrong way to grieve is not to do it, is not to go through the process. That's the only wrong way to grieve. And for me personally, as I was reading my Bible the morning of the funeral, I did the old, just open the Bible, flip to a passage, hope that God speaks to you. And it opened right to Habakkuk, and Habakkuk speaking of there being basically no fruit on the vine, nothing to be hopeful in. It is bleak, it is dark, and yet God makes our feet like the deer to walk on mountain heights, and that he is the one who enables us to walk through the pain of the grief that we've got to go through for that healing.
Well, loss is a reality in life between Eden and heaven, and that's where we live. I mean, we were never really created to suffer loss. We were made to enjoy intimate relationship with the living God in the most beautiful place called Eden. And then tragedy happened, and God experienced the loss of our relationship with him. And he came seeking us, seeking Adam and Eve in the garden. And so Kubler-Ross, has given words to the reality of that loss in 5 stages. And those 5 stages are shock and denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance. And of course, we are first, just to reiterate those and go through them just quickly, we are first shocked or in denial that this loss is happening to me, whether it's the loss of my car keys or the loss of an infant, and all things in between. I'm angry about it. And anger, of course, is the protest that protects us, attempts to protect us from the hurt and sadness that's underneath. And then the longer we stay in anger, the more we want to isolate, and we do isolate. And then that is the breeding ground or the fertile ground for depression to set in. And then fourthly, we just start to bargain. It's only if I would have done this, I should have done this, I'll never do that again. And it's this kind of trying to make a deal. Let's make a deal, like the old game show. Let's make a deal with God, with the universe, with ourselves, that somehow I can protect myself from the hurt. And then finally, I come to the painful, long journey of acceptance. And in my blog, I just kind of countered each one of those with what God has offered us in Scripture.
Well, give us a tip. Come on, don't just lead us there and then don't tell us.
In spite of shock and denial, we are to face reality. And facing reality is the idea of through journaling, through conversation, through prayer, that I begin to face reality. So that's number one. And then rather than anger, I allow the feelings to surface, because sadness is the antidote for anger. So feel your way through it. Be sad. Tears are so welcomed and so needed. Big boys do cry, and big girls, and all in between. Sadness is critical. And then thirdly is to sit with others, because depression comes from isolation and internalizing the feelings. I mean, with depression, we often talk about that which gets unexpressed becomes compressed, and therefore over time becomes depressed. And so the antidote for depression is to sit with others. So now we've got face reality, be sad, sit with others, and then fourthly, rather than bargaining to make a deal, just be thankful. Thankful for what you did have. Whatever the loss is, whatever you had was a gift. It was a gift. You didn't create it. You didn't make it. Somehow God gave me that as a gift. So turn from bargaining to make a deal to accept or being thankful for what we have. And then fifthly, rather than going through some kind of just acceptance, okay, que sera, sera, a Doris Day sort of approach, that I'll just let it be, then a biblical answer to acceptance is surrender. I surrender to a sovereign God who truly is over all of my life.
Wow, that's what we need. Last comment, Audrey. I'm watching her.
Well, yes, the que sera, sera, I think comes up so often, especially in my counseling practice. I have so many clients who say, what's the point in grieving it? It's already gone. It's not going to bring that loss back. It's not going to help anything. What's the point? And I just want to reiterate the importance of grieving goes back to honoring that which was lost. If it was a life, if it was an experience, it's assigning value and meaning and dignity to that person or thing that was lost. And if we were to die and no one were to remember us, it would de-dignify our God's placement of us on this earth. So for us to grieve is to place honor. And so there is a point to the grieving.
Yeah.
Well, we want you to keep with us this month and this topic. We're going to go into it several different ways. Check out Phil's blog, hardinlife.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Have a good week.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good week.